All right, hello there. Gabriel Clevenger here, pastor of the table. So today is All Saints' Day in the Christian calendar. And here in the USA, we are only a couple days away from a general election in which many offices, including that of president, will be decided. So it's an auspicious time to be sure. Now, I'm most certainly not going to try to sway you politically today as such, but I do want to get you thinking. So I'll tell you a story. Sometimes we here at home play games with our kids. We have a few around our house. Zingo is one that has been a favorite in the past, as well as some of the favorites like Candyland and Monopoly, the My Little Pony iteration of Monopoly, that is, having three girls as we do. But a couple that have made their way into the living room a few times recently are Hungry Hungry Hippos, to which our youngest refers as Chomp Chompopotamus, and the other one is Pop the Pig. Now, you may be familiar with these. With Hungry Hungry Hippos, the point is to hit the handle on your hippo as fast and as often as you can to gobble up the marbles that all roll around in the middle of the contraption. You want to get more in your pile than anyone else. It's a classic one who gets the most wins type of game. It's simple, it's furious, and it's loud. But Pop the Pig is a little more complicated. You have a pig, smartly and ironically dressed as some sort of barbecue master, into whose mouth you insert these burgers. Well, there's a die that each player casts, which gives a color. The player rolls the die and then selects a burger of the color that they rolled, which then has a number on the bottom of it that tells you, you can't see it at first, but the player then puts that burger into the pig's mouth and then pushes on his head the number of times that the burger had on the bottom of it. The pig gets a little bigger with each push until finally his jacket pops open, his hands fly out. Whoever gets the last push is the winner. Whoever's pushing when he pops and flies open is the winner. Totally by the chance of the roll, but not without its share of suspense. Now, our youngest enjoys the hippos, but the pig feels like too much work to her to play it the way it's supposed to be played. She and I enjoy getting the pig out, making him pop, arranging and rearranging the burgers, and etc. She can have fun playing by her own rules at this point, but she will have more fun when eventually playing with others later by the rules on which they can all agree. Now, the most complicated game, I guess, that I've ever played, and that's not to say it's the most complicated there is, but the most complicated one that I've ever played was called Axis and Allies. It was a board game based on World War II. You can still find it on Amazon now. They have a couple of editions. The first one, I think, was based on the year 1941. Second edition is on 1942. And in true 2000s fashion, now we have Axis, Allies, and Zombies, although there were most certainly no zombies present in World War II. But a player would pick to be either the Axis or the Allies. You could be you pick to be one of the Allies, the UK, Russia, or the US, or you can pick to be one of the Axis powers, Germany or Japan. Each roll started with certain land holdings which were worth a certain income, certain military units which cost certain amounts to buy or replace, and a certain amount of money. The rules for that game are very complicated. The battle sequences in particular involved a lot of chance, and the game as a whole demanded strategy, including cooperation with your own side. If the sides were only red and blue versus green and black on a generic jigsaw board, then there would be no interest for the game. But this one was actual countries of which people had heard of or were currently a part on a board game that looked like the actual countries of the world at that time. The fact that this game represents a momentous and important clash of what we perceive as good versus evil, well, that just adds an air of tension to it, right? And the Axis powers actually start out with more resources and land. As a player, you either feel duty-bound to make sure that you do your part for humanity to win as the Allies, or enjoy playing devil's advocate, flipping the script, and trying to do in the game what the nasty Axis couldn't actually do in reality, which is win the war. This game took a solid 15 minutes just to set up, and the playing of it could take hours, but somehow I and my junior high friends could stay focused on this thing for hours at a time. There was something about the story, something about what went along with this, irrespective of what we did with the game, but the mimed mini reality that was lent purpose to it is what kept us intrigued. The story of the war was compelling. What was at stake? How the world could have turned out if a few things had gone differently. That gravity held us 12 and 13-year-olds in an interested focus. Now, I'd say that in some way this could be true for us all. We all need some sort of animating story for our lives, right? I mean, Often there is one and we just don't know what it is. I mean, even with Hungry Hungry Hippos, the story is that the one who finishes with the most marbles wins. And in some games, some modes, that's true. Somehow a totally analog board game with complicated rules and laborious gameplay was able to occupy middle school boys for hours on end. It was because of the story. Now, today is All Saints' Day, again, in the Christian year. It's an opportunity, it's a prompt, really, for us all to remember the people who have lived and died before us in this way of following Jesus. It's a time for us to be confronted with the fact that we aren't making this up. We don't step onto a blank game board, and we aren't really even the most important characters. We are, in fact, stepping into a story that has been going on for a long time. But this isn't a popular or a comfortable thing to see it this way. You see, we in America usually prize originality, or as we often say it, authenticity. Somehow being authentic means doing something different from how anything has ever been done before, spontaneously, in the moment. That's what counts. But inevitably, at least two things happen. One, consciously we begin to look around for something more. We don't want to be limited to a tradition, but people always begin to feel like things are thin. The story they're in needs something else. Number two, and this one usually is under the conscious mind, we end up enacting the script from something or someone else anyway. People do this because there is no such thing as being totally original or authentic. We find ourselves from the very beginning with a certain language, from a certain place, from a certain family, with certain things just being the way they are for us before we ever had any decision really to make. So each person has a story. Whether she or he likes that story is another matter, but no one is actually making their life up totally from scratch. But usually people don't acknowledge or realize that they are already part of some kind of story. And that is where a day like this one rises to importance. The stories of the people who have looked for and found, or been found by, God. The people who have fought and argued with God, the people who have obeyed God at the cost of their own lives, the God who has relentlessly chased people to show them how is right to live in this world He created, how people can live in cooperation with what this God is doing for their own good and the good of those around them. This is the story into which we are all invited. This is where the game analogy breaks down, because this is most certainly not a game. But there are rules that need to be understood, strategy that needs to be implemented, and very real consequences for living rightly or living poorly, and which side you are on, so to speak. But the Christian scriptures and history give us tangible examples to follow. They also give us cautionary tales from which to learn. Often these stories are the same people. The stories are found in the same lives. Think here of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, David, Peter, and Paul. And not just men. Remember Sarah, Rahab, Ruth, Esther, Jesus' mother Mary, and more. Our texts today from Jesus laying out what it looks like to live His way in Matthew chapter 5. The portrayal in Revelation 7 of the kind of celebration that awaits those who are faithful to Jesus when everything gets sorted out at the end. And in 1 John 3, what kinds of things we can expect as we let God write the rest of our stories. This is what we can look forward to. This is what tells us what kind of story we're in. We are not left on our own, and we are certainly not left to make it up as we go along. To be sure, we will need to live our lives in circumstances and a time specific to each of us, but a faithful life will be comparable to those who have lived and loved God before us. We need their examples, as it turns out. God uses their lives to inspire us and teach us what a faithful life looks like. Your life will have particular twists and turns, but it will certainly help us to know what game we're playing, what are the rules, and what the story is. We learn that not just from the lives of the people in the Bible or the people whose books and letters we can read that help shape our faith in an overarching way. St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, Martin Luther, John Wesley, Teresa of Avila, St. Teresa of Calcutta. But this is also a time to look back and appreciate the ways someone has shaped your own story in a more personal way. Someone who has died, a grandparent or someone else close who knew your name and you knew theirs. More of an everyday saint, if that's a good way to put it. Those people who shaped your story, who put you in a better place by their own faith in and story with Jesus. Those are the people we stop and remember today as well. Listen, this is all pointing at and reminding us all that none of us can make this faith on our own. We begin this faith dependent on others, and we will die depending on others. There's nothing wrong with that. We do have to make our own choices. We got to opt in, as it were. But all too often, the story this world or culture feeds you and the rules you end up playing by are more like hungry hippos. The one who gets the most, the quickest, wins. It's you against everybody else. The only thing that matters is getting more. Now, that's a bad story to be in. That's not the part that God offers you. God invites you to live your life in cooperation with the story that He is enacting, that has been lived by countless others before us, most of whose names we will never know, but who are now, as the author of Hebrews puts it, a great cloud of witnesses cheering you on. And we at the table want to cheer you on also. We want to be a help to you in this, and a place where you get to do what God has made you good at, to find out how encouraging and life-giving it is to experience the life and the love of God as we were made to experience it. Please contact me here with questions or if you need more information. Being part of a group working together for the kingdom of God, with the grain of the universe, so to speak, going with the script, is better than being part of any political party or team or club or anything else. We invite you to the table. Now I'll bless you as we finish today. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. I hope to talk to you soon. Goodbye.